welcome to Answer Me 10, the podcast, with me, Barbara Dickson. Having been interviewed many times over the years, I'm always conscious of the generic nature of interviewing. And in my case, it usually begins with, "So Barbara, tell me, how did it all begin?" This has never exactly excited me, but I've always enjoyed reading those one-page affairs at the back of glossy magazines, which ask the same stereotypical questions to different people every week. Hugely diverse answers appear. So, I thought it would be fun to pose the same 10 questions to some other notable women in the world of music and see what different answers they would give. This is what Answer Me 10 with Barbara Dickson is all about. I hope you enjoy the journey with me. Today's guest is English singer and songwriter Chris Weil. Born in Barrow-in-Furness, Chris started her solo career in 1991, recording and touring before joining the Albion Band in 1994 as lead singer and guitarist. It was in the Albion Band where she met future long-term collaborator Julie Matthews, with whom she would form a duo that's still going strong 27 years later. As a duo, they've recorded 15 albums and continue to tour annually to their army of fans. Along with Julie, they formed an all-female supergroup called Daphne's Flight with Helen Watson, Melanie Harold and Christine Collister, and released their debut album with them in 1996. Reforming in 2017, they continue to record and tour together. Chris is also part of the much-loved folk project St Agnes Fountain, whose annual Christmas tours have been delighting audiences around the country for over 20 years. Question 1. Town or country?
Well, I was brought up in a really a little town, barrow-in-furness, but right on the edge of town near the countryside. So I could get on my bike and within 5 minutes be in the countryside, and my friend had a pony and it was lovely. And then when I got married, we moved to Manchester. And I felt I'd never been to a big city before. And I did fall in love with Manchester and I still love it. But as I'm getting older, now I live in a rural town, and I wake up to the sound of birds, and it's only 15 minutes to the city. So as long as I'm not too far, once I lived in Scotland, in a place called Salin, which you know, of course.
Yeah. Very near Dunfermline, just to qualify that.
Yeah, that's right. And it was a bit of a trek to a proper shop. And so I really missed living near a town. So I guess I love living in the countryside, rural area, but not too far from the city.
So you want to be, you want the facilities, which most of people do. And let's face it, you're not very old. But as you get older, you find that you do rely on services more. You need to be on a bus route if you're not going to drive your car and stuff. And so it's sort of best of both worlds where you are and you're happy with that. You wouldn't improve on it.
No, I think this has been my best situation really through my whole life. And because, like you, we go on tour, we go from city to city every night. And to come back, when we drive home the day after the last gig, and we just say we live in heaven and it is so beautiful. So no, it's perfect.
It is a wonderful, wonderful thing, isn't it, to be able to return? I know that wonderful feeling of coming through the door after having been away. And people think how romantic and glamorous that is. But actually, it's the day-to-day slog of being on tour, not the shows, but the actual, the grind of it and the moving around and all those domestic changes that happen. And to just come home and shut your door is the most marvellous thing.
It's fantastic because we're like icebergs, aren't we? The tip of the iceberg is being on stage and it's fantastic. And people applaud you for coming to work and they applaud you when you leave and it's brilliant. But all that stuff, like you say, that goes on underneath the driving, traveling, the checking in, the checking out, the sound checking. That's what we get paid for, really, isn't it?
It is, but we do it by choice because we love it. And it gives us a fantastic appreciation of being at home. Question 2. Meat or veg?
Yeah, it's funny because I like meat, but I eat it with guilty eyes. and because I eat a low carb diet as well, so it kind of suits me. But when I was married and my kids were younger, my husband decided to become a vegetarian, and it was in the 80s. Well, it wasn't so easy to make vegetarian food like it is now. It's so easy now, isn't it? And so I learned how to do it, and I wasn't touring at the time. And I got so good at making vegetarian food that all my friends used to say, "Will you make me a dinner party?" So I started this little business of making vegetarian food. But for me, it was I like I don't know. I like chicken. I couldn't wait to go out and have some chicken because I think we mostly ate vegetarian. Yes, with guilty. And when I'm driving, when I see those trucks go past me, I think you're a terrible person. And then I go and have a sausage.
I think it's very interesting because a lot of the people I've spoken to, a lot of my guests have come over as being slightly guilty, unsure. Also, they come out with stuff. I'm not accusing them of anything, but they come out with stuff like, "Yes, I know I should be a vegan," and stuff like that. I also think that there wouldn't be many animals around if you didn't eat them. So they are part of the food process. It's just animal welfare. I think if we are conscious of that, really conscious of it, as much as we can be, then that is cool because they wouldn't be there if we didn't eat them. But it is an interesting thing because you're talking about a low carb diet. I find we've never touched on this with anybody yet. So I'm interested in this as well because vegetarian food can be quite stodgy because you have to replace with plant-based foods, the meat and the fish. So it is difficult if you want to keep the carbs down because, a lot of us, as me certainly, find that I put on weight very easily.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had a weight problem. I even, 15 years ago, I had a gastric band fitted in some desperation to lose some weight, because my knees were bad and they've both been replaced type of thing. So it's been a part of my life. And over since lockdown, just a couple of months after lockdown, me and Julie, who I share this house with, decided we would do a low carb diet, and it's been a revelation. I have no joint pain anymore, and I've lost a couple of stone, a little bit more actually. But you're right, when vegetarian food is it's carb heavy. It is carb heavy, unless you're really, really good at it. But it's so easy to put a bit of bacon in the oven, or
But do you remember when the F plan diet came out? Everybody said, "Well, you know that the F stands for, don't you?" Because there is this kind of slight bloatiness that can go with vegetarian food. Now, I do talk with some degree of expert knowledge here because I was a vegetarian from about 1978 to about 2002 when I stopped being a vegetarian by choice. I didn't sneak into bacon sandwiches through the back door. I actually said, "You know something, I've had enough of this now. I'm actually going to have a low carb diet." I didn't even know what it was called then, but it's an interesting piece of information. And I think a balanced diet perhaps is the way forward. Question 3, TV, film or books?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I'm busy. I like to have busy hands. I'm busy when I wake up and I'm busy till I flop on the sofa in the evening. And then I want to watch a movie, maybe a quiz show first, a bit of Richard Osman. I like that. I love that House of Games. And then Julie and I watch it together, and then we'll watch a movie, or we'll be back to our box set that we binge on. Don't really watch TV. And I love a book. I used to read avidly, but I find myself, I'm too busy now. I feel like my hands want to be busy. So I go into my workshop and I design my bags, and I'm sewing all day. And so I've gone off the reading, and it's sad. But if I go on holiday, I can read a whole book. It's no problem because I know there's nothing else for me to do.
A lot of people find that they get into bed and they're too tired to read, for example, if they're trying to start up the exercise of reading again. I used to read non-fiction many, many years ago. I read biographies and quite a lot of non-fiction stuff, which I found fascinating. And then about 20 years ago, I took up reading seriously and I started to read novels. And now I very rarely read nonfiction. I'm reading a book currently called The Ballad in the Plough, which is about the farm towns of in Scotland, so it's a lot of music sprang from that. But it's just because I was given the book by someone to read. But I normally read novels, and I find, I prick up my ears when someone suggests a novel to me. And that's the thing that motivates me. But it's odd; it happened quite suddenly.
Yeah. I mean, that was me. I was a fiction reader. I mean, I liked scary books like Stephen King and Dean Koontz. I just couldn't get enough of them. I'd be the first person to get on the biggest, scariest roller coaster ride. It's just the way I am.
It's a lot of people find that horror and crime is very escapist. And very often the people who write the crime and the horror are the nicest people in the world, like Val McDermid and Ian Rankin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like Americana too. So I quite like American films, although I think we probably still make the best films of all, the ones that absorb you so much. But I was brought up loving that. And so American novels, was the way that I went, really. I don't really like serial killer stuff. I'm scared of that. I don't like that.
It's a bit visceral, perhaps.
Yeah, but the horror, I know somebody's made it up, and Stephen King tells such a great story. So I'm all right with that.
Question 4, night owl or early riser?
Definitely early riser. I used to sleep until 2:00 when I was a teenager in the afternoon because I've been dancing all night and going on bikes to folk clubs to play, and I'd be late, very late. Then, when you have children, you learn, your body clock just gets used to waking up at 7:00, doesn't it? And now I wake up in the morning and I open the window and all I can hear is birds and it's beautiful. By the time Julie wakes up at 10:00, at 10:30, I've already done about 2 hours in my workshop. I love that time of day. I just love it. And I can't stay awake past 10:00 in the evening.
I find this quite interesting because you're about the only person I know who sounds like their body clock is much the same as me. And it can't just be because we've had children. But it is interesting because I can't get through the evening concerts wise unless I have a sleep in the afternoon, right. Because I get up early. And by the time, if I was to go on stage at 7:30, 8:00, because when I go out with the band, I do the whole show. So I'm on at the beginning of the show and I would be absolutely flaked out. So I have to have like a top up. So I have 2 mornings, Chris. Yeah. I wake up in the afternoon and it's morning again. I wake up about 4:00 and I think, right, I can bite a tiger now,
That's brilliant. No, that is very sensible, Barbara. I mean, you know what it's like when from town to town, city to city. I wake up in the morning in my hotel room and I still think, it's only 8:00. I'd love to sleep till 10. So then I become this person who can go from 8 in the morning till, 11:00 when we clock off. And then I go back and I don't want to go straight to sleep because I want to have that time. But I'm too tired by then. So I think that is the way. The siesta is the most. I mean, Mad Dog and Englishmen and Scottish women go out in the midday sun, don't they? Should have a little kip.
It just shows you how much I need naps and sleep. Is I go back to my hotel after the show, so unromantic, unglamorous. That's always what I've been. I'm not the show busy one. I'm not a diva. I go back to the hotel and literally have a cup of tea and then read my book, and I'm asleep by midnight and up at 8:00 in the morning on tour as well. Because I can sleep at night, considering I've slept in the afternoon, which is, people scratch their heads. But it's something to do with the focus and the amount of psychic energy one requires to actually pull this off, this job that we do, and do it to one's own satisfaction in particular.
Yeah.
So we are quite similar in that. And that's another thing I love about you, Chris Weil.
How similar we are.
Question 5, faith or fatalism?
No, I don't have a faith as particular faith. Although I do have great faith in the planet and people. I love people. But the fatalism thing, it makes me scratch my head, because with the day that we're given by whatever, in that day and in that time and every hour and every minute is the chance to change your mind and make a decision. And so fatalism, yeah. Does it? Well, that would mean for me that if I made a fantastic decisions every single day, that the same thing's going to happen to me anyway. So I don't really believe that. But I do believe, and that sounds a bit crystal, because I'm not really that crystal, but I do believe that we choose our life and we come here to teach and to learn and take it back with us wherever we go, wherever that is. So I do have a faith, but I don't know what it is. Do you get me?
If you were to talk about God, which I will, God gave us free will. So it's not like God is telling us what to do all the time. I mean, he stroke she, they expect us to make good decisions about, and all that stuff you've just said would tie in with that as well. So you could be a person of faith and say those things as well. It's very interesting, although I'm not saying, you need to believe in God, but it's a path like everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I just think given the brain that we've got and our spirit that we have, that we carry around with us all the time, I mean, I feel like I'm driving my life. I don't feel like I'm being led by the nose. I think I'm driving it, and I've got the energy to do it. And that comes from somewhere. I don't know where it comes from. I'm a fantastic mum who had amazing energy too. But yeah, so I'm not a fatalist, but I don't really know what I am.
Question 6. Facebook or the phone?
Well, I'm a bit like you. I know that you'll pick up the phone every now and again and make contact with your friends. And that's what I like to do. So every single morning I call somebody. I call Melanie Harold and say, how are you doing on your own in London during lockdown? Or I'll ring Christine Collister, who's just dipped into the Irish Sea. I want to hear their voice and I want to hear how they are. And I can't tell that by a message only. Now, I do use messaging to keep in touch about times and things like that's what it's for me. But I really love my friends and I want to hear them. And you can't really tell on a text, can you? And Facebook is, we use it as a professional tool to let everybody know what we're doing when the next gig is. But as far as the regular Facebook day to day, I'm not that interested really. I go and I skip through it and I thought, I don't care what you had for breakfast.
I used to laugh when my kids sent me pictures of their dinner. This is why I find a lot of social media very strange, because I just don't relate to it at all. Yeah. I want to keep in touch with people and I want to let people know what I'm doing and I want people to be interested in my work. On a personal level, I think I share this. You're the first person I've spoken to who said that you want to hear the sound of somebody's voice.
Yeah.
Rather than just be in an abstract way talk about telephone calls. It's an emotional response to somebody you really care about. That's if you are attached to people, which you are.
Yeah, definitely. And also I think that Facebook, for a lot of people, has become a lifestyle. So you can be having a cup of coffee with someone, they're just looking at their Facebook. You think, what am I then? Chopped liver.
I also think it's very strange that children sit at tables. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a rant now, but I am older, I'm allowed to rant. Children sit at tables in restaurants and with adults and they're on some sort of computer to keep them quiet. And also the thing I notice is that people wheel babies around now and the baby faces away from the mother or the carer or the person in charge of the perambulator, and that person is on their phone. So in our day, the baby faced the parent or the guardian as they were walking along. So, like to quote Randy Newman, you would say, "There goes a black boy, there goes a white boy, there goes an octoroon." So you would be able to show the baby all these things, that we're going by. Look, there's a tree, there's a something.
I remember having a facial one day, and the beauty therapist said, "Oh, you could get rid of those lines. You could have Botox in your forehead." And I said, "Oh, really? What lines?" She said, and I said, "Well, I look like you if I have." And she said, "Yes." I said, "No, thanks." She said, "What? When you have a baby, how will it know if you're interested, if you're surprised, if your eyebrows don't move?"
Question 7. Shower or bath?
Well, if I'm in a hotel on tour and there's a bath, I'll have a bath because I know I haven't got anything else to do. This is the thing about not being able to just chill out in a bath. Julie Matthews can stay in a bath for an hour and read a book. I can't do that. And I find it difficult to get out of them these days because I can't bend my legs properly to get up because of the knee replacements. So definitely shower. What I love more than anything else is one of those big open wet rooms with beautiful 2 showers hitting you. I know it's not great for the environment, but on a rare occasion when you can have it, that's what I love. I love a shower. I love going in the sea. I love being in a pool, but I find I can't relax in the bath. I'll fill it up, get in, got to get out. It's too long for me.
And also with, as you say, with the knee replacements, it is a difficult situation being lying on your back.
Yeah.
In water, the physics involved in that as well, and the actual getting onto your knees before standing up and being safe also. One of my guests said that they fell over in the bath, but trying to have a shower that was inside a bath. So, I mean, on an indulgent level, I do love to have a bath because I'm very lucky. I don't have problems with my knees. And the idea of running the aromatherapy oil under the water and sitting in there, it's sort of transporting, but it's really, it's almost like having a massage without the other pair of hands, the warm water. It's an indulgent thing.
It's lovely. And I think when in the last house that I lived in, there was one of those big 3-corner baths, like huge, lovely thing. And that was so nice. I loved being in that. But this is quite a small bathroom here, and I'm not really interested in struggling with the bath and trying to get out.
Of course, I've never thought of that. That's very true. A 3-cornered bath, a more open shape, would be much easier for somebody if they had problems, say, leaning on their knees. Of course, that's true.
We're so glamorous, aren't we?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've always liked the nitty-gritty. Question 8. Spring or autumn?
Oh, most definitely spring. I absolutely, by the time we get to February and March, I'm dreaming of spring. I'm dreaming of those daffodils shooting through, and I'm dreaming of the flowers coming to fruition and the trees getting that, that very, very, very pale green, that lovely thing that you can see through the trees, but there's that green sheen on them. I absolutely adore spring. I adore lambs, getting on my bike, riding around the countryside. Autumn to me means winter's coming, a little bit like that.
So you find autumn, the changing, the dying back of the vegetation, the kind of slightly battening down the hatches feeling is sad in a way. Do you feel that?
I do, yeah. I mean, we're lucky because we go on tour in the autumn. And so that's something, I really look forward to that. And then, of course, we tour in December with St Agnes Founding. I don't really like December. I don't really like winter very much. And when I live in Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, at the top of the Pennines, as you know, and it's damp up here. It's like we're living in a lichen-filled, damp place, for like 3 months. And then, of course, spring comes.
Do you feel approach of, say, Christmas and New Year celebrations, do they mean anything to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I never get depressed. I'm one of those annoying people I don't get overexcited, and I don't really get really terribly sad. I'm quite even, but, I think about things. But Christmas, I loved it when I was a kid. It was so brilliant. And when the kids were small as well, it's magical, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and we go on tour at Christmas. Me and Julie and Chris Leslie, we have such a lovely time. We go from town to town. all dressed up, and hundreds of people come out and see us in Christmas hats, and it's lovely. And we've been doing that now for 21 years, and that's absolutely fantastic. So we come home on the 22nd, which is my birthday. We come home the evening of the 22nd or the morning of the 23rd, and then we've got to take the van back, and we've got to unpack, and we've got to, we're like that. So the birthday's gone, and then the next day you've got to start putting the tree up, because we haven't done that. We've been away since the 27th of November.
So you're kind of hanging on to the coattails of Christmas as it comes through the door.
Oh, God,
trying to slow it down a bit.
Yeah, we'd like somebody to come in middle of the month and dress the house. That would be great.
The thing about spring, which I find is so interesting, it's a bit like having a baby. You always forget every single year what spring is. Yeah. So it kind of comes as a surprise. And when these little plants kind of pop up again, you go, oh my goodness, look at that. Like you're seeing it for the first time. But I know it's only a year since you saw it, but there is this excitement. I think there's a kind of a hardwiring in human beings to feel optimistic when the prospect of weather, she says very carefully, gets a bit warmer. Which it hasn't yet this year, but this thing, there is an optimism and a kind of opening up, and maybe it's all to do with our fertility as well.
I was just going to say that, because I think human beings are quite cyclical anyway, aren't we? Especially women, and go, with the moon and the tides and all of that. And I think that we're much closer to the planet and its forces than we realise. And so, yes, I think, and also there's that thing about daylight, because, the days are short during the winter, aren't they? And the vitamin D goes down a bit, and some people suffer from that SAD syndrome, don't they?
And especially in Scotland. I mean, I heard a man on the radio recently talking about how people, because we evolved from people in East Africa, the human being is much happier in its body when it's nearer the equator.
Wow.
So I don't know about seasons, but certainly there is this wonderful thing about our clock, our body clocks, and we haven't come that far really from the old dinosaurs, I suppose, in evolutionary terms.
I think you're right.
Question 9: dine out or take out?
Okay, so I like to cook. If I'm at home, I like to cook. I love cooking. I like the things I like. I know what I like to eat. I like making other people happy with making food. So takeout is always a great idea, but it's never as good as you think it's going to be. And no, never eat it the next day. If I couldn't eat it all, now it's got to go in the bin. Dining out, however, you walk into a place and it's full of people, couples and families, and I like to sit there and I like to watch everybody. I'm a people watcher. I want to be in a room full of people. I don't want to sit and take my sad little takeaway home. No.
Do you like to browse the menu as well? Do you like to look at the menu and think, oh, what shall I have? So that's an excitement about the prospect of food when you're sitting in a restaurant. Would you dress up to go out? Would you change your top or put different shoes on?
Always get changed to go out to eat. Always, just because it's exciting. We don't do it that often. And you know what it's like when you're on tour. You're grabbing stuff from M&S on the motorway, aren't you, to eat in the dressing room? So when you're at home and you go out somewhere nice to eat, the least you can do is look nice for each other, even if it's just one of your pals.
It's interesting also, because I don't have a microwave in my house, but microwaves have been fantastic for eating when you're on tour, because the microwave in the theatre will give you a hot meal at 6 o'clock instead of you having to go out or having to have a big lunch or something like that. I find that really interesting. Takeaways, let me just say about what I think about takeaways is we rarely have them, but it's the containers that really are winding me up. I do not want to have to deal with all those containers and throw them in the bin or put them in the recycling so they fill up my recycling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you go to Australia, for instance, you get your takeaway in a recyclable cardboard box. You don't do plastic anymore in a lot of places
Well,
now.
I'm glad to
We
hear it because the supermarkets have still got all the fruit and veg is still
no.
basically in plastic. I mean, it sort of shocks me because I come from a generation where our parents didn't throw anything away, and then we got into this disposable society thing where we threw lots of things away. But I've been recycling bottles since 1978 when Friends of the Earth used to collect them in London. So I was always
Wow.
mindful of this kind of thing. But I do
That's
think
brilliant.
takeaways, I mean, this is just me having got an answer from you saying what I find is kind of rather distasteful about taking food away, the waste.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you come home and you think, oh, I just don't feel like cooking. But I still, even if somebody said, I'll go and get a takeaway, I'd still rather cook.
Also, you're a proper cook as well, and actually, without being patronising to anybody, you'd be able to, as my mum would have said, rustle something up.
Yeah.
And whether it's just bacon and eggs, and a piece of toast, that's enough to fill somebody up. My husband, of course, would be horrified because he says, you can't have bacon and eggs for supper. Where he comes from, I've no idea, but where I come from, you can have whatever you want at any time.
I'm with you. I mean, I've in the past, if you're just peckish, you don't really want a big meal, what's the matter with a bit of toast with some mashed banana on it? You know what I
Absolutely
mean?
right. Or peanut butter and banana. One of the best sandwiches I ever had, my friend T. Guillory, who lives in Norfolk, made me a sandwich once, and it was peanut butter, desecrated coconut, and sliced banana and honey. It must have had about 7 million calories, but it was delicious.
Julie likes bananas with Marmite on toast. There you go. That's
Bananas and Marmite. Now, that certainly is a Marmite moment, isn't it? She always was very strange, that girl.
She's a strange girl, yeah.
Question 10. High heels or trainers?
Oh, now in my dreams, it's high heels because don't they make your ankles look great? They do, don't they? But I don't
Yes.
wear clothes that match high heels. I used to when I was a Northern Soul dancer, out every night dancing in circles around piles of handbags. I could dance in 6-inch heels, the whole thing. And then in my 20s, when the kids were small, walking miles and miles with prams and stuff. I went to flat shoes. I became a sandal wearer. And now, if I have to put shoes on, I get a little bit miffed because I'm barefoot most of the time. So it's a short answer. I do think they look beautiful. I love looking at beautiful shoes.
I mean, a lot of my guests have said the same. We tend to not wear stilettos or narrow heels, but would you wear sort of high heel boots for playing, for your concerts, when you change your clothes to go on stage? The reason I ask this is they say that on stage, it's really good if you get a heel because it just takes you up a bit, makes you look a bit taller.
I'd wear, those kind of Doc Martin shoes with soles.
Yeah, you can be straight and wear a long dress and high heels and have a kind of Shirley Bassey image. But I run 100 miles from that and would much rather have a sort of funky old lady look. And that kind of Doc Marten thing, although I kind of wear ankle boots that have high heels, but thick heels. So it takes me up in the air, but I'm stable because when I'm playing the guitar and leaning back, which of course you have to, and there also is a rake on a stage, which you know about. Yeah. So there'll be a rake on the stage and you're wearing high heels. So you have to overcompensate, leaning back, have a guitar, you have to compensate as well. That's why we've all got bad backs when we play guitars. But that sort of thing is important. And I just think, for me, it takes me up in the air a bit as well. And I can not entirely strut my stuff, but I can sort of glare at the men.
I like patent leather. I'm wearing at men's great. I've got patent leather shoes, but they've got a little bit of a sole, but not really high. But I've got so used to, my back has got so used to having my feet flat, and I've got very healthy feet because I haven't worn heels. I mean, I know women that have been wearing heels for so long that their toes point the wrong way. And I just haven't done that because I like my feet there.
Wedges are quite good, aren't they? Because
Well,
you're stable on a wedge, but if people are really little, I can understand they're really
yeah,
short little,
yeah.
then I think that is that is a problem. I think if you want to assert yourself, sometimes getting a little bit higher up in the air is a good idea. I don't have that problem because I'm 5'6" and I've never
Yeah.
needed to be that much taller. But I
Oh,
still used to love those shoes. I mean, I've still got a pair of Terry de Havilland shoes that I bought in the King's Road when I first went to London in 1974. I've still got them because I hope one day to have a granddaughter and I'm going to give them to her and say,
oh,
sweetheart, have a look at these. It is such a pleasure to talk to you. Wonderful, Chris Weil.
oh,
One of my favourite singers in the world,
oh.
and such a wonderful little gesture that you came on my podcast, Answer Me 10, to talk to me. So I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart, my dear, and I hope to see you very soon.
It's an absolute pleasure, and love you too. Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks for listening to Answer Me 10 with me, Barbara Dickson. This podcast was recorded in Edinburgh in 2021 and produced and edited by Lee Noble and John Eden.